Hey everybody, welcome back to my build of this LDO Voron 0.2 kit. Yesterday, in the previous episode of this series, we got this thing printing for the first time. So here's what we printed. If you didn't see that episode, go back and watch it. It was fun. And yeah, I'm excited this thing is printing. I will put a link to the entire playlist of all of the episodes of this build so far up in the corner right now, so that if you're just joining us, you can go back and catch up with how we've gotten to this point. So we have a working printer, but we haven't finished the instructions yet. So going back to the official Voron build guide is what we're going to do today. And I think today we're going to get to the last page of the Voron build guide. What is left to do is basically just to enclose this thing, right? Which is good for me because I typically print with ABS and ASA and those types of filaments that require a higher temperature chamber. And so we need our enclosure in place for me to be able to use actually most of the filament that I have in my library. I had to go searching around yesterday to find a roll of PLA so that we could do our initial test there with, you know, something that didn't have to be enclosed. And so we're going to build the enclosure today. We've got a bottom panel as well to put on, and then we're going to build the Tophat, which goes obviously on the top of the machine and gets everything closed in. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and get started. And as usual, I will be putting the instructions up here in the corner of the screen for you to see. We've got skirts and panels first, and I think that this is a fairly simple process, right? It's going to be mostly, so here's they want us to start on the right side here. We're going to be using the M3 nuts that hopefully we've preloaded correctly in all of these channels, and so I'm going to be kind of positioning these things with my tool here, and then screwing some screws into place. I've got an entire pile of M3x6s, M3x8s, and a couple of M3x10s as well. So we'll just use the appropriate ones that are called for by the instructions as we go through. And this is a fairly simple process, right? It's going to be just threading some screws in here. Now, the nice thing about these printed parts is that they can slide into place over the screws, right? So they left these little kind of U-shaped openings, so I can just slide these down over these screws if I get the screws started, and that'll help me to get these things positioned, slid side to side in the right spots. So I'm just going to go through and do that. I don't think I'm going to talk much during this process because there's not a whole lot to say. It's just lining these things up and screwing them in, and so I will time-lapse you through this as I go ahead and do this part of the build. All right, so here for the front skirts, we have, the first thing is we have these nice little separately colored printed parts that we should be able to just snap in here. Yeah, to give a little splash of color. And then the other thing to point out here is that these are meant to go on the sides here, right? And they leave a space in the middle. And typically that space is for the screen, but because we built the version here with no screen, there is another printed part here that just fits in between those two. And so we're just going to put these three on like that, and we're going to skip the pages in the manual, which are actually the pages right after this, right here that talk about how to assemble the mount for that screen and get it put in place. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put these two parts on and then go ahead and put this third part in between the two of them. All right, that was looking good. They want us now to flip this thing up and put the bottom panel on. Now, I cannot set this on my desk upside down because the top of the print head, you know, will hit the desk. So there's not a flat surface anymore to set it this way. So I'm just going to kind of hold it like this carefully while I do this work. But the idea here is just to remove the 4 little feet here, and then we've got this deck panel that sits underneath here. And they do point out in the instructions that this thing, the whole pattern is not the same, right? So you might have to turn it 90 degrees to get it to line up correctly when you go to put it in place. All right, so there's our bottom panel in place. That looks really good. And it's cleaned up the underside of the printer a ton. Speaking of cleaning up the printer, before I forget, there is one modification. It's just an extra piece that I printed out. And I will link to these in the description of this video. These were designed by, I think, Maple Leaf Makers, and they're called modesty panels for this little side view into the electronics compartment back here. So the default Voron build doesn't come with anything to fill in this little rectangular gap. So they provided these things, and they have just tabs on the tops and bottoms that just slide into the extrusions. So we should be able to just slide these in here. And this comes as a part that you can configure in your slicer using infill settings with 0 top and bottom layers to print whatever pattern you want. So any infill pattern can go in here. I obviously have chosen the small hexagons and sized those with a scale that I liked, that I thought looked good. And so we're going to put those in place here before I forget about them, since they were in my pile of printed parts. And so that still allows airflow, of course, but it kind of encloses the sides there of that electronics compartment. It makes it look a little bit nicer when you look at the printer from the sides. All right, so now back to the main instructions here, and our LDO guide, which I'm still following on my other screen, that has changes from the official Voron guide. It tells us that we should skip this step here because we have this special umbilical board that's mounted here that we've clipped our cabling into. So this page here is a little cable guide that you can zip tie your cables to keep them clean, but we don't need to do that. So we're going to skip that, and we're going to skip this motor panel piece here because, again, this printed piece that came with our pico-umbilical is already in its place, so that's good. They do have us going ahead and working on the spool, the filament holder, and I guess I will do that, but I'll show you here. I don't have the second part. It's in another bag of parts that we'll grab later. They typically want you to mount their spool holder onto the back of the printer here, pointing back. The LDO kit, again, came with their own version of this, and what this is it's a slide-in piece. So one of our side clips here for our side acrylic panel later on will have a little thing that this can slide down into this way to hold the spool holder in the same place and orientation as the official one. But the nice thing is you can slide this out, turn it 90 degrees and slide it down this way and have it flat against the back of the machine for storage or for transport or whatever. So when you're not using it, it's not sticking out the back of the machine. So we have this slightly different piece, but we do need to, as they show in the instructions here, grab a piece of PTFE tubing and slide that in here to use as the roller, right? I think this is going to be the top. There are gap or slots here for us to put this in both the top and the bottom. Do we have a long enough piece? Oh yeah, they gave us a plenty long piece, so I will probably go ahead and just slide these in both of these slots. And then we just need to cut it flush right here. And I would like to be using my sharper hobby knife for that. So this next one, we'll switch knives and use the one that's a bit sharper so we get a cleaner cut. Yeah, that's much better. All right. And I think we'll save this knife because I'm pretty sure we're going to need it again in a little bit. Yeah, so now I'm not going to install this thing just now. Like I said, when we put the clips on for our side panels, there will be a mount that appears that we can slide this thing into. So I'm just going to set it off to the side for now, but at least we have it ready to go. And yes, they want us to run our PTFE tubing path right now for the main filament path. So remember, we have our inlet coming down right here. Maybe it would have been easier to do this before putting this back little panel on here, but this is fine. We've got this sitting here, and what we want to do is run this up and through our little gap up here and then up to our print head. That would have definitely been easier to do before putting this panel in place, but this is fine. I'm just going to use these tweezers to grab this thing and make sure that it's seated nicely in there. It is. So I'm purposefully not cutting this to length just yet because I'm not quite sure how long it needs to be. There are a couple little holes right here for a zip tie that we could put through there to better hold this in place, but it press fits fairly nicely into that slot, and so what I'm going to do for now is just leave it like this, and once I get it to the right length and I've tested it out to make sure I like it, then I will probably tie it down. So up here on the top of the printer now we have this coming out, and what we need to do is probably move this up like to the front corner, because that's as far away as this gets, and figure out what length we want for this to be to get up to there. Now what I'm after here is I don't want this to be a lot taller from this side, looking at it from the side, than our umbilical wires, right? Because what I'm concerned about is that when this moves back and to the middle, which is as long as it can be, that this is going to be kind of tall here and hit the underside of the top hat. So we want this to be as short as possible while still being long enough to reach up here and maybe only, have maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches of vertical space above the top of our tool head in this situation when it's stretched all the way out like this. So a length somewhere around here should be fine. We could always cut it a little bit shorter later on, so it's probably better to err on the side of longer, because we could trim it down shorter, but we can never make it longer again if we cut it too short this first time. So I'm going to cut it right here. And go ahead and fit this right into the top of our print head here. Yeah, that's a decent length. So you can see here from the side, that's what I've got it looking like. And then when it presses back all the way, it's about that high. I'm still a little concerned about it rubbing on the top hat, but again, we can potentially cut it a little bit shorter once we see how that fits. But the motion is good. All corners of the print motion here, we're fine with the length of that. So I think that's good for now. And then the other thing it shows here on the instructions, and I think one of you asked this on a previous episode when we were building the filament sensor in the foot here. The inlet is on the side, right here, this hole. And one of you asked, are we concerned about the filament rubbing on the sides of that hole as we feed it through? And I said I really wasn't, but they want us to actually put another piece of this just pushed into here all the way, and then cut at kind of a short length. I'm actually going to hold off on that for now because I'd like to see a actual spool of filament hanging on our filament holder to figure out what length I want for the piece that's coming out here. But we will stick another piece in here and have maybe about that long or so sticking out so that we can use that to feed the filament into the filament path when we switch rolls of filament. So I'm going to add that later, but for now we'll go ahead and move forward. And it looks like what they want us now to do is close up the back of the printer. Again, we are skipping the spool holder that they have over here on the left-hand side, and we're going to be using just a regular clip instead. And so I need to go grab the parts for this, but basically it's going to be the same thing again, just using these preloaded nuts that we have in place here to put clips on the bottom corner, a clip in the middle, and then these clips up at the top that have hinges on them that we're going to use later on to attach the top hat for its motion. So I will, again, fast forward you guys through this as I put this together. Quick side note, I didn't realize until just now when I peeled the protective outer paper off of these panels here, I assumed they were just going to be the matte black ones that we've used elsewhere on the printer, but these are this really nice sort of semi-transparent smoky black. So that was a cool surprise. I was not expecting that, but these look amazing. And they're going to be fingerprint magnets. So there's our back panel in place, and now we're doing the same thing again with the side panels. And what they want us to do, or to make sure of, is that when we do this one here, which is the right-hand side of the machine, as you're looking at it from the front, the two clips that go on the top and the bottom of kind of the front edge of this here are the special ones that have the extra hinge attachment, because this is where the door hinge is going to be on this side, so the door opens this way. And so we need to make sure that I find the correct parts here when I do this. And so I'm going to line this up like so, and then grab the correct corner pieces. And again, these are the ones, like this one has this little extra extension with a hole in it here that we're going to use for our hinge for our door. And this is that special clip that I mentioned earlier that fits here, that our spool holder will fit into. And I'm noticing actually now that this reaches around the back side of the part as well in such a way that this little side clip can't really sit there. I'm gonna actually move this up to the top here. I might do the same with the other side on the back here, because I noticed this back panel, it's in two separate pieces. I don't know if you noticed that or not when I was working on it, but it is in two separate pieces, and it's a little strange because the top corners weren't really held in place by those top pieces. The top pieces only really held, latched onto that top smaller part of that panel. And so, yeah, I think that this arrangement will work, and I'll move that clip up to the top, and I'll move the one on the opposite side as well to match it. That looks like we've grabbed that. Now this vertically I can adjust to figure out how high I want that spool holder to be, but for now I'm going to lock it in place right about here. And then down the road, once we get the spool with our filament in place, we can loosen this and adjust that vertically as needed. Okay, looking good. Next we have the front door. And so I'll turn it this way. And this one's a little bit more complicated, right? So I'm going to grab the parts that we need for this. All right, so how this is supposed to work is we've got these two little latch pieces here, and we need our magnets. So the kit came with this stack of these little 3x6 magnets. Now we need to make sure that the polarity is the same for all of these, right? So I'm going to hold this way and like slide a magnet in. I'm not sure if I need glue or not. I probably could use a drop of glue. So I'm going to get all four of these in here like that. Yeah, I got them too close together. Let's try that again. All right, we'll put that one way up there. We'll put this one way down here, and we'll put the magnets way over there. Okay. And all I want to do is grab my super glue and put like a small drop kind of just in the edge here next to each one of these to hold them in place. That'll be fine, and I'll give those a minute to dry. So this door piece actually came with some holes kind of pre-cut. They're not all the way through, but they're just like sunk in there, I assume for magnets. even though it looks like we don't really need that, they provided it anyway. So I'm going to line this up just kind of like I want it to make sure that I understand how everything fits together here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our handle, which is over here, and this again has holes in it for magnets. I should go to the next page of the instructions so we can see here. Yeah, so this shows us where that tapes on, and that we're going to use these two long screws that I have here from the underneath for becoming the hinge and attaching into these two parts here. But looking ahead, what we're going to do is we're going to put 4 more of those magnets with, you know, the polarity correct so that they will grab onto these little pieces that we just put these magnets into. And then we're going to tape this just over the top of the door here. So I think what I'm going to do is use the pre-drilled holes in the door as our alignment spots so that I can align these magnets in the right place before we tape this down. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I mean, I suppose we could put the magnets in here instead of in here. Like, they provided these openings in the printed part, but there's also now cut openings in the door as well. So I could do it either way, and then we're going to use our double-sided tape to seal them in place. Yeah, I'll think about it as we go here. But I believe that these are probably dry enough now that we could go ahead and get those in their correct spot. Actually, let's do it a different way. I'm going to change the order up a bit here. So I'm going to put these hinges in place now. And it says in the instructions, these are meant to screw up through this plastic part, this bottom part here that I'm screwing it into right now. And then this hole in this upper part of the hinge is supposed to have been, assuming it printed correctly, it's supposed to be larger than the threading on the screw, just slightly, and so it will just sit in place. So we're actually screwing into this bottom half of the hinge, but the top half of the hinge is just going to be floating, which means then that we could lift the door up off of its hinges when we need to do that. So I can feel this now starting to go into this top part of the hinge, but I do not think that it is actually, that the threads on the screw are actually biting into the plastic. We'll see in just a second here. I will finish tightening this down. Not super tight, right? Because I don't want to strip the screw or strip the plastic. So we'll just go to like there. So let's see. Yeah, so that part there can lift off. So this is good. What I'm going to do is go ahead and screw both of these hinge parts in then, and we're going to use them to align everything with the door here, to align these parts, and then go ahead and tape those parts down onto the door. Alright, so now we can slide this down onto here. Yeah. And do I have extra plastic somewhere? For some reason this one doesn't seem like it wants to close flush here. What am I hitting? And this is why I think it's probably a good idea to check these, or to, you know, get these hinges kind of in place to start with, because we can make sure that we've got the motion we want and everything lined up before we then go and tape our acrylic door panel actually down onto them. I think this is going to mitigate potential problems, right? So loosening this and pushing this piece up a little is what then caused my hinge to start to get its full range of motion back. And this one is pretty good, although it could probably use just a touch of the same treatment here. Shifting this up so that we're sure that this goes down completely flush to the surface of the front extrusions there. Yeah, that's real good. Okay, so now I can slide my panel in place get it lined up, and go ahead and tape these two pieces down onto the panel. So we've got our VHB tape for that. I'm just going to cut slices of the appropriate length. It looks like this is just slightly too wide to fit in this little area here, so it's just going to have to be taped up in that larger angled area up there, and then same thing down here. So I'll cut a couple pieces of that and get that stuck into place. Peeling the backing off of this tape is something that I always find to be a extra hard challenge. If anybody has any tips or tricks for this, let me know. But what I normally do is just try to get the point of my hobby knife down kind of under that edge, and then it's still hard to grab it and pull it off without the tape actually coming off of what you've stuck it down to. There we are. Okay, so moment of truth, making sure that this is very much aligned the way I want it to be, and I'm going to put these other pieces on the other side here to double check the alignment. Or just to verify that we're good. Yeah, and then we can go ahead and rotate both of these down and stick them in place. All right, see that one I got a little misaligned. I'm probably like being a little bit overly OCD with making sure that this is lined up just right, but one thing that I don't like on my big Voron that I built is I never did quite get the door aligned correctly. I'm actually probably gonna drill some holes and rather than using tape on those hinges, actually, you know, screw them through the acrylic sheet. Eventually, because I'm not crazy about how that one lined up. So I just want to make sure this one is lined up perfectly. So that's pretty good. So I'm going to now tape these other two side pieces on here. All right, so there's our door working. I'm going to lift it off for a minute, assuming that's still a feature that it has. It should. This one down here is caught a little bit. There we go. All right, so I'm going to lift this off for a minute, and we're going to go back now and put those two magnet holder pieces in place. So we're kind of back on this step of the instructions now, and I've got the preloaded nuts there, so they're going to go like this. And I'm going to leave these a little bit loose because I want to be able to slide them up and down so that we can get them aligned with the door correctly. Or not aligned with the door, aligned with the handle, because we're going to put the other magnets in the handle, right, to attach to these. Alright, so with those in place, we can slide our door back down over its hinges. I guess it'd be cool if we did both at the same time. There we go. And so now I can adjust these height-wise so that they are directly lined up with these pre-cut holes. So like there. And there. And then we'll go ahead and tighten them down. Okay, so now all that's left is to deal with this handle, right? So we've got, if I put my door back in place here, we've got, I think, two choices. I can either decide to put the magnets in the door, which they look like they don't go all the way in flush if I do that. And so I think I'd rather put them in the handle. So I'm pressing these in. I double checked the polarity just there, making sure that it's this way. So now I want them to go into the handle this way. So I'm putting all 4 in with the correct polarity here. I'm just press fitting them in place for the moment. They're going to be held in place. We don't need to glue these, right? Because they're going to be held in place with a couple of pieces of our VHB tape in a minute here. This one right here didn't seem like it wanted to go all the way in flush. So I'm just going to use the surface of my table here to push that through. Yeah, okay, so we're real good. Let's make sure that our polarity is correct. It definitely is. And so we'll seal these in here with a couple pieces of tape now. All right, and then carefully lining this up, we're just gonna press it in place here on the door. Right, and now a quick test. We'll set this guy up this way. Very nice. Yeah, all right, I'm happy with that. I think this door design is actually quite a lot better than the big Voron 2.4 that I have. I realize those are much bigger doors, so it's probably easier to make a better solid feeling door when it's this much smaller. But yeah, that's nice. It seals shut good, and it's gonna stay. It feels solid. It doesn't feel like it's gonna, be floppy or anything like that, which is some of the problems I have with the big doors on the big Voron. All right, moving ahead. Here's our astronaut friend. He's grown some corn. Yeah. And all we've got left is the extrusion Tophat, which is going to just be a assembly with a bunch of these, or the remaining extrusions that we have here, some short ones and some long ones, and we're going to build basically a rectangular box out of them, and then use the same types of clips we've done here for attaching the clear panels on the sides of it. I don't think that there's anything that difficult or unusual here. I'm not going to use thread locker in the ends of these extrusions like we did when we built the actual frame itself of the printer, because I'm not concerned about this being perfectly square and rigid, since it's just the top of the printer and not the, it doesn't have anything to do with the motion, the squareness of the motion of our X and Y axes. And so, yeah, this looks fairly simple. I'm going to go through and build this. I may or may not choose to show you this sped up with time-lapse as I build it. It looks very simple. So I'm going to set this off to the side, grab those parts and build that, and go ahead and install that, and we'll be back, I think, probably when I'm done with that part of the build. All right, so I finished building this Tophat. It was not difficult. It was just a matter of building kind of a rectangular frame here out of extrusions like we've done before, doing a lot of preloading of M3 nuts, which we've done before, and then using these clips to screw the acrylic panels into place. I was not super careful about the squareness of this, like I mentioned, but I did grab my machinist square here just to make sure it was kind of close to square, and then I just used my tabletop here to square everything up. So not quite as precise as what we did with the rest of the frame, but I think this should be fine. So let's move this out of the way, and I will get the printer itself back up here on the desk. This is becoming extremely hard to get in frame here because it's just so big now. But I think all that we should have to do is place this on top here, lining up. There are 2 screws in the front of this Tophat piece that fit down into these cam locks, and then on the back side here, all we should have to do is line these hinges up. They did have me leave these hinge pieces kind of loose. That's what the instructions wanted me to do, so that I could slide them up and down a little to get them aligned, and then we're going to just put 2 screws in from the sides here to attach these in place. And then once I get those screws in place, I'm also going to tighten down these hinge parts on the back of the top hat as well, so that they don't slide any more than they need to. Screwing into plastic here, so I'm being careful not to over tighten this. But I do want it to be snug enough so that we get good solid movement on our hinge and not a lot of wobble. That seems pretty good. All right, and then now here on the front of the machine, yeah, we've got this nice hinged motion, so that's great. I wonder where it stops. If I turn this, I don't have room on my desk. Okay, so it does naturally stop just beyond 90 degrees or so of hinging back. And then the other thing I need to do is get the front door open here, and using our little printed tool, our spacer tool, we should be able to turn these cam locks to get the correct opening lined up here so that we can get these to fit down in there and then lock in place. So there it is, all buttoned up. It's taller than I imagined, actually, and so I don't know how to get a good side view of this, but I was concerned about both the filament path there and our umbilical cable rubbing up against the top of the top hat when the print head is in its backmost position, right? So if I slide this back here, yeah. So our Bowden tube is just ever so slightly starting to touch the lid here in that middle back position. So I could probably shorten that, although I'm concerned about how tight it will be if I shorten it too much more than it already is. I might go like maybe 1 or 2 centimeters shorter on that piece of PTFE tubing there, just to help it to keep it from rubbing on the underside. The only other thing that I have not done is I didn't put the sleeve yet on this umbilical cable. They provided with the kit just a black sleeve that we can cut and then zip tie into place. I have not put that on yet because I'm actually thinking about ordering a colored one of some kind, if I can find one that goes with the color scheme of the printer, just to add a little bit more character rather than using the plain black one. So I'm not going to put that on right now. We will. You'll see when next time you see this printer in action, it may have something in place there, and it might be something that's not just the plain black one that it came with. But other than that, we're done now, right? So if we go back and look at our instructions, they're showing us how to open and close the lid and lock it, and that we can use that tool to operate those little cam locks. And then it says assembly complete. How exciting. And I guess the only thing, they're showing the spool holder on the back there. I never did take this spool holder piece and attach it onto this little piece. So this part, again, is one of the side clips, but this now should just slide down into place over the top of it like that. And so now we have our spool holder here. And if we're not using our printer, or if we're transporting it or whatever, I can slide this up out of here and then slide it down on the side here, and then it's folded back against the back of the machine so that it's not sticking out, getting in the way. So I think that that's a nice design, simple to use. I will probably almost always just leave it in this configuration here because I'll almost always have it ready to print with a spool sitting on it. But it's nice to know that that can fold away if we need it to. All right, and so now I think we are complete. Our astronaut found a friend, astronaut high five, or fist bump, I guess, and we are done. This thing looks really, really good. It's hard to get it in frame here. I'll take a photo of it. It'll be in the thumbnail of this video for sure, so you've probably already seen what it looks like all completed. But yeah, we're done building. That does not mean we're done with this series, although my plan is to stop with the daily uploads, right? So this has been a fun experience for me, actually the first time on the YouTube channel that I've tried to, at least on weekdays, record a video and upload it same day. Of course, the editing's been fairly simple with these, And so it's not been a huge amount of work, but it's been interesting to get into that routine of trying to record and upload something every day. That is going to stop as of today, but the series is not going to stop. So what I'm going to go do is start running this kind of through some tests and running it through its paces a bit. I'm going to go through the printer config that came with, from LDO, the default one that we've been using, and make a bunch of changes to it. And I'm not going to do those live on video because that'd be a little strange, but my plan is to go ahead and do those, and then I will probably in the next video that appears on this playlist, I will show you the changes that I've made to the LDO configs, and I'll probably share those with you as well if you're building this same printer from this kit and you want some of the changes that I've made. I have some ideas about filament load and unload macros that I'd like to change a bit, and some other changes that I'd like to make to the configs just to make the whole thing a little bit nicer and easier to operate. So that is probably the next video that you'll see on this playlist, but it won't be tomorrow. So if you've been following along with the daily uploads, thank you for doing that. That's going to stop for now, because I just need a bit more time to kind of play with this and go through some of my ideas and get things in place and be really happy with it before I then share it with you. So a couple days from now, probably, you should expect that. And then we'll go on from there and start making some other modifications and tuning this thing up to, print parts, Gundam parts mostly, with the highest quality and precision that I can manage. And so those videos will again appear on this playlist in the upcoming days and weeks. So yeah, this has been a fun build. The kit is super solid. If you're thinking about getting a kit, I can't speak for other brands, but this LDO one has been really good and fairly simple to build as well. And so far, at least from the one or two little test prints that I've done, seems like the quality is really, really good too. So right out of the box, it's a good build experience and a good quality printer. And like I said, I think we can tune it up and make it even better. So we'll be doing that in upcoming episodes. But for now, I will finish recording this so I can edit and upload this as the last daily upload in this series. And then I will see you next time in a few days with some changes that I've made to the configs for this printer. And we'll walk through those and I'll show you what I've done. Until then, have a great day, and I'll see you later.